Welcome back to Star Wars Shovelware, my name's Luke, and in today's review we're taking a look at Quintus and the Absent Truth on the Nintendo Switch, a narrative-driven horror experience in which you play as a father searching for his missing daughter, and with the help of a little mouse called Quintus must uncover the mystery behind her disappearance. The game was originally released as 4 separate chapters, but comes together as a complete package in this Switch port. So let's get right on into this review, and make sure to like and subscribe to support both me and the channel. Now, the story plays a big part in this one, so I'm going to try and avoid spoilers as much as I can, but the game opens with Alan, the game's father figure, being awakened from a table nap by his mousy companion Quintus, who appears to be much more intelligent than your average everyday rodent. As we get to exploring the house, it's immediately apparent that not all is well in Alan's life, and that he was once a great musician but hasn't composed or played anything in over 10 years. But even more concerning is the disappearance of Alan's daughter, and a series of unusual events lead us to his old recording studio and down a storyline concerning betrayal, the supernatural, and a trip into Alan's tragic past. Now, I'm not going to divulge any more of the story, but I'd say overall I found the storyline to be a little off-kilter in its delivery, and for me a few things didn't quite add up, but this has granted the developer a little creative freedom to enhance the gameplay and add variety, so it isn't exactly a bad thing. There are a few plot twists thrown in for good measure, and overall the plot is not a bad one, despite it being a little predictable and in some ways a little cliché, but it's mostly enjoyable, and on the whole I thought the developer did a decent job with this one. So while the eShop description for this one makes it sound like the horror and puzzle elements are going to play a major role in it, I'd actually say that it plays more closely to a walking simulator than anything else. The game is comprised of 4 separate chapters, and I'd say that you spend the majority of these walking from one location to another, though there are environmental puzzles which form a portion of this walking. Now, when it comes to the controls, there's very little to know here. You move and look around with the thumbsticks, can interact with objects which you can also rotate to inspect them, are able to crouch and run, and in some sections jump, but that's about it. The simplicity of them though ties in with the gameplay, which in itself is kept rather basic when it comes to both its mechanics and puzzle elements, and like other similar games, the objective in each chapter is to work your way through the environment, picking up on clues as you go, which generally lead you towards the next storyline event. Now, along the way you'll occasionally get the odd jump scare to keep you on your toes, but it's not exactly what I'd call terror-inducing, and there are several occasions when you need to locate specific items, and a couple where you need to turn the power back on, but nothing overly complicated or really inventive. Where things do get a little bit more creative, however, are in the 3rd chapter when you get to take direct control of Quintus, and this is where the majority of the environmental puzzles come in as you navigate the terrain as the tiny rodent, jumping between things like tables and chairs, and carrying around everyday objects made giant by his size. When it comes to the non-environmental puzzles though, again pretty simple stuff here. There are a few where you need to work out the correct sequence to input on a keypad or a piano, and several occasions where you need to use Quintus to retrieve items or perform specific actions, but overall there's nothing particularly complicated about them, and to be honest I would have preferred to have had something to at least challenge my brain a little, rather than a few arbitrary puzzles which didn't really appear to tie into the storyline in any way. Now, there's not a huge lot more to say when it comes to gameplay. It's pretty much your standard puzzle adventure game, and I've played plenty of similar games in the past. The most unique thing about this one are the Quintus sections, which I definitely found to be the most engaging aspect of the game, but alongside the storyline it's not a bad one to burn an hour or so on, and when it comes to replayability this is a single run through and done kind of game. However, you do unlock a museum of secrets upon completing it, which provides an insight into how the game was developed. All in all though, not a bad little puzzle adventure title, but not one that I'd say you're likely to remember for years to come. So perhaps the most unique aspect of Quintus and the Absent Truth are its visuals, which feature a kind of monochrome sketchbook style visual aesthetic with a spot of cel shading, and I really like the way that the game's lighting affected the visuals, filling them with colour and detail. Unfortunately, the quality of the game's textures are atrocious at times, especially when it comes to things like posters, pictures, and some of the items you're able to pick up and examine. The skybox in the final level looks particularly horrendous, and overall the game is pretty dark, which did make it very difficult to see some key puzzle elements. On the audio side of things, overall the game sounds good. We get some nice ambient sound effects and the voice acting is not bad either, though I felt that at times the main protagonist fails to convey convincing emotions with his voice acting, and his singing segment was incredibly cringy to listen to. When it comes to the soundtrack, while the eShop calls it mesmerising, I have to disagree. There were a few different tracks which, while all sounding well composed, played repeatedly at specific points, and I personally found them to be a bit mismatched. Overall though, reasonable stuff on the audio and visual front. So performance wise, things remain stable for the most part, though there are a few frame rate drops, mainly in the more open areas of the game. When it comes to gameplay issues, not a whole lot to report really. Navigating the terrain as Quintus can be quite tricky, especially when balancing along thin walkways, and the amount of walking in the game does get a little tiresome, especially when there's very little in the way of eye candy and the game has you traipsing back and forth at times. But other than this, interacting with certain objects can be a little buggy, which was really just more irritating than game breaking. All in all though, Quintus and the Absent Truth is enjoyable enough to play through. His storyline kept me intrigued, gameplay was simple but had enough variety to keep things interesting, and it's one of those that you can play through in a single sitting. And so when it comes to my own personal rating, I'm going to be giving Quintus and the Absent Truth 3 out of 5 stars. If you're looking for a short narrative adventure and have about an hour or so to spare, I'd say that with a slight discount, this one is worth your time and money. And so that about does it for this review of Quintus and the Absent Truth on the Nintendo Switch. So let me know if you're going to be giving this one a go in the comments section below, and as always, drop me a like if this review helped you out. For now though, thanks once again for watching, don't forget to subscribe for more Switch reviews and content, and until next time, take care of yourselves, and game on.